So, products, before they become products, they are objects. And objects that are not really sold, objects that are not even bought. They exist to serve certain functions, and probably functions that are beyond their pure functionality. Over a period of time, these objects have become interwoven with mankind's life, man's life, his social life, his cultural life, his economic life. They have got so bound together, the man and the object, the people and the products, the way they have got so bound together that they have attained a kind of emotional density that end up defining each other. In fact, they even start representing the social structures behind the man's organization in society, the psychological basis of man's life. And it is this density that these objects have, which are infinitely interesting. In these couple of lectures, we will try and understand how these objects represent the changes in the social structures and in the psychological makeup of mankind. The easiest way to trace this evolution is to look at the objects or the products that we consume early on in our life, in our life on this earth or in our society, and probably the easiest thing to do would be to remember the houses, the homes that we used to visit during our summer vacation, and those are the houses of our grandparents. Now, today if we try to recollect, reflect upon our experiences at the house of our grandparents, what really strikes us? Probably the first thing that would strike us is the size of the house, probably the furniture that was placed at certain locations, the chairs, the beds, the dining tables, the patio where people would sit, and so on. This memory that we have of our grandparents' house has a certain depth. It also has a certain richness that we can explore and discover what really is the true nature of this richness and this density. And in my view, in addition to the emotional relationship that we have with our grandparents, we also have relationship with these objects. They are not simple objects, they become speaking objects. They talk to us. They tell us a story of society at that time, story of a family which lived in a certain way in that space-time configuration. If we try and take an example, probably the first example that we should take is that of a bed. Now, if we try to remember, the bed in our older houses would be placed at the center of the room. They would be large, imposing structure, almost immovable. They will be made most likely of wood and heavy wood, and probably they had lasted for a long time. Bed was a bed, and then there were chairs, there was dining table, there were tables and so on, which were placed around the bed, either in that room or in some other room. What I am trying to say is that all of them, the configuration of all these furniture was relatively fixed to each other. They also symbolized a kind of moral order or an effect effective order in the household. They had a relationship. There was a relationship between the bed, the chair, the table, and so on. And they represented the people who used those furnitures. Today, if we look at a modern home, we will see that often bed is hidden, or bed does not have legs. Bed is foldable. Sometimes bed will appear. And the same is the case with chairs and tables. There is far more freedom in the way these furnitures are arranged in a modern household. Much more freedom. Beds, like I said, beds without legs, foldable tables. And most of these furnitures are stripped to their barest essentials. A chair is just a chair. A bed is just a bed. A table is just a table. And they do not really respond to each other. There is no relationship between these objects within the household. They stand alone. They stand as an individual. They probably communicate, but they communicate in the sense of style, in the sense of overall theme. But they don't really respond the way the older the bed in our grandparents' house and the chair in our grandparents' house communicated. The density of feeling, the feelings that were associated with those furniture early on no longer are associated with the furnitures today. What I am trying to say is that just the way furnitures have been stripped of their cultural, psychological, social meaning and density, similarly, man who uses them has also been stripped of his all other identities except that of the user or consumer of these objects or products. Today, just like bed is a bed, man is just a consumer of that bed. Man is not really a symbol of the moral order or the effective order in the household. He is simply the user of that furniture. The expression, the power of expression that the furnitures of yesteryears had is no longer available to the furnitures of today. They have been emancipated from the ritual, the ceremonial, the ideological and the moral functions, just the way man has been emancipated from most of these functions and man has become a pure consumer or a pure provider of labor power. Any other identity is not allowed to man. Another example that we can think of when it comes to the objects and the way the modern household has changed from yesteryears to today is that of mirrors. Now suddenly we see that today we don't really have mirrors in our household. Only place that we have a mirror is that in the bathroom and just above the wash basin, where it is dedicated to the fastidious care or ensuring that our appearance is good for the world. Often the mirror above the wash basin is not even framed. If we try and remember the household of yesteryears, we'll see there was profusion of mirrors. We had large mirrors, we had small mirrors, we had looking glasses, we had a dressing table, we had mirrors hidden in the wardrobes, we had mirrors everywhere. Today, of course, those mirrors have disappeared and we have just at one place. Now, what really a mirror does? The most obvious thing that a mirror does is it reflects our image. So, in the mirror, we see one more of myself. And one more of myself means I see myself as an object. Moment I see myself as an object, I realize that that object can be worked upon. I can do something with that object. And since the image is my own, I can do something with my image. I can do something with myself. In some sense, in physical sense, it probably encourages, it shows reflection. In a sublime sense or in an abstract sense, it encourages reflection upon oneself. Mirror not only reflects us, but it also reflects things that are around us, that are in front of the mirror. Now, if there are furniture and objects placed before the mirror, we will see more of those objects in the mirror. So therefore, we will see profusion of images in the household if there are more mirrors and they reflect not only the people but also the objects and products that are scattered in the household. So more the mirrors in the house, the greater the profusion, greater the sense of abundance and plethora of objects we feel. It gives an impression that we have more than what we actually have. It gives us a feeling of abundance. With the disappearance of mirror, what kind of feeling has really become scarce or lost in the household? Another quality of a mirror is that mirror is a glass, and any mirror has a radius of curvature and a center of curvature. So, light that falls on the mirror tends to converge at the center of curvature. So, the tendency of mirror is to allow light to converge. Now, today, with no mirror or less mirror around us, what is happening is the tendency to converge is becoming less and less, if it has not disappeared. So, as mirrors have disappeared from our midst, what has also disappeared is the tendency to reflect, a certain inward character that we develop because or prompted by the presence of a mirror, a feeling of abundance, even though we are not so abundantly endowed, and a tendency to converge to a point, and therefore the disappearance of mirror from our midst is leading to a feeling of impoverished life, a life which is diffused and refuses to come to a point, and a life that is outwardly focused and a life that prevents inward reflection. Another point that I would like to mention is the way the modern houses are designed. Earlier, if you remember, the rooms were enclosed spaces. There was a bedroom, a dining room, a living room, a parents' room, children's room, and so on. Today, it is not easy to classify them as segregated spaces. They interact, they open into each other. There are spaces where they merge. There are, they effortlessly move into each other. The closedness, the closed space has kind of disappeared. It has become more fluid. Another thing we have seen is that there are no windows today in the household. Now, windows, of course, very simply speaking, they allow light and air to come in. But not only light and air, what used to happen is, suppose there is something placed in front of the window, sunlight will enter the house object which is kept in front of the window and illuminate that object with the sunlight, with the glow. And probably that object will radiate with the glow of sunlight. Now today, the windows have disappeared. There are no windows at all. Because there is a mediation of universal lighting in the house. There is artificial light that permeates the entire household, and lights are also arranged in a way that you can't really identify the source of the light, because often the ceilings are recessed and neon tubes are placed all across the wall so that it ensures universal diffused light in the house. Now this tendency to obfuscate or remove the source of light from the presence of man, in my view indicates that the source is not really important. You don't really need to go into the source of anything. Because the moment you go into the source, you cannot help but be reflective, lead an inward life, and so on. So I think this ensuring of diffused universal light in the household is also symbolic of leading a superficial life that rejects existence of inward reality. Coming back to the window and the light that comes and illuminates an object, I feel that illumination of an object brings focus onto that object, and moment it is illuminated with glow or with sunlight, it creates desire, it creates beauty, it kind of envelops the object and radiates and allows or facilitates or encourages man to focus onto that object, and that is contrary to what is happening around in the household, and therefore removal of window is also in conformity to this trend that nothing should be allowed to gain focus. Another thing that has disappeared from the household are portraits. Earlier, if you remember our household, we will have portraits of our grandparents, of the master of the house, sometimes half portraits, sometimes full life-size portraits. They have also disappeared. Today, what has replaced them is pictures, framed pictures, often of children, but pictures by nature are of lower value than the paintings, because paintings or portraits have taken much more effort, and they are far more dense in terms of effort and emotional value than the pictures. So removal of portraits from the household and entering of pictures or no pictures are also an indication towards a movement of mankind towards a superficial